Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Lily Allen Duenas. Together, we'll talk about the world of yoga and we'll talk to people from around the world. Join us for authentic conversations about the global yoga ecosystem, and we'll cover yoga philosophies and methodologies along the way. Inhale, exhale. We're about to dive in. Hello and welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. This week, I am so excited to have Tracy Estefane on the show, a yoga teacher from Lebanon. So Tracy Estefane started her yoga journey in 2014 when she first discovered Bikram hot yoga in London as she was completing her master's degree. Then in 2015, Tracy took the leap and turned her passion into her profession and joined a 200-hour hot yoga teacher training at the Absolute Yoga Academy in Thailand. Directly upon her completion of the program and returning back home to Lebanon, Tracy started teaching private and public yoga classes, including hot yoga, vinyasa, power yoga, and yoga lattes in Beirut's leading yoga studios and gyms. She's now co-leading yearly 200-hour yoga teacher training programs in Lebanon and internationally as well. And those programs do specialize in vinyasa yoga. She also has a special interest in energy healing and breath work and has attended numerous trainings in pranic healing and rebirthing. So as you can tell, Tracy has an amazing story to share, and I'm so excited to welcome her onto the show today. So thank you, Tracy, so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. So, Tracy, I'd love to just dive in and ask you how you first got started on the path of yoga.
Sure. As you've mentioned in the bio, I was living in London at that point. I was doing my master's degree, which was in marketing, nothing to do with yoga at that point. And I just read a lot about the benefits of yoga and I wanted to give it a try. I saw that there was a Bikram yoga studio conveniently located, and I went to my first class. And until this day, I remember that first experience. So it was in a room heated to 43-degree temperature. I walked in and I was able to maybe do just half of the class. It was just exhausting and my heart was beating so fast. I felt like it was going to rip my chest open. And I asked the teacher if this is normal. I was not fit at that point or prior to that point. And the teacher was like, yes, don't worry about it. This is cardiovascular. And I did not expect yoga to be that hard. So I lied down in Savasana for like half of the class. And although I did not finish it, when I left, I felt like something has already changed inside of me. Maybe it was like the amount of sweat that I released. Maybe it was just the mental challenge of staying even in that hot room, although I was not continuing the practice. I'm not sure what exactly it was, but the shift happened directly during my first class. And I was just driven to come back the next day. And I started to feel like I was getting better at it quickly. I was able to do more time after time. And also the benefits kept on just expanding. And I felt this clarity in my mind. I felt fit and mobile in my body. I felt good within myself, more present, more peaceful. And I just kept coming back for more, basically. And soon after this, I felt like I need to share this with everyone that I know. How does not everyone practice yoga, And this was the main reason why I did my teacher training 1 year after I started my practice.
Tracy, I completely agree that those benefits just expand and expand and expand as you continue to practice. And I think that there's still benefits that probably every week or every month I kind of am reflecting on my practice thinking, oh, that's what I'm learning. I love the benefits that come in. But I think it's so amazing that you jumped right into teaching after completing your 200-hour training. I would love to hear about how that transition happened.
After I graduated from the program that I was doing in London, I was planning on landing a job in that field. Um, but because I was changed after having started yoga, I wanted to work in the health and wellness sector. But at that point, I was looking for marketing jobs in that field. I was looking for jobs and it wasn't happening so quickly. And then it occurred to me that I might as well do a 200-hour teacher training just because I had the time, a time that I might not have had later on if I were to be employed. So I decided to do the training without any intention to start teaching full time at all. I just wanted at that point to deepen my knowledge in the yoga practice and the yoga philosophy and the lifestyle. So I decided to do that 200-hour teacher training. During the training, I really enjoyed the teaching part and I felt like I was good at it. So after I came back home, I was like, okay, since I still don't have a full time job, I'll start teaching part time, giving classes here and there to family, to friends, maybe at my local studio where I practice. And that's how it started, really, without any intention of just giving up everything that I've done before and becoming a full time yoga teacher. But as I started to teach here and there, people were really enjoying the classes and they were asking for more. And I was really enjoying teaching and I found it to be so fulfilling. And I found it to be like a true purpose of mine. And at that point, I stopped looking for other jobs and I just continued teaching with a little dream of mine that hasn't been realized yet, but I would love to one day own my own yoga studio, maybe like a wellness center, and teach in it one day.
Would you like that yoga studio to be in Lebanon, or do you envision it being in like a tropical, Thailand destination or something?
I am not sure yet. The situation in Lebanon now is not so great. So existing businesses are really struggling to make ends meet. I don't envision that studio in Lebanon for the time being. I would probably see myself opening something up abroad. And then when the situation here is better, I would probably open another branch or see how to make it work. And I also work at a local studio, which is called Sarvam Yoga. And I'm very much part of the community in that studio. I'm one of the main teachers there. So this is my community for now, and that studio feels like home to me. Although I don't own it, I'm very good friends with the owner, and we work closely together. We give teacher trainings together. We run retreats together. So I would not want to open something else that would kind of divide the community in Lebanon. But if one day we expand into another branch or something, then yeah, I would love to do that. But my initial vision for my own center would be to have it somewhere abroad because we are currently working on immigration anyways.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned how difficult the situation is in Lebanon right now. I know that's on a lot of people's hearts and minds and prayers. And would you like to share a little bit with our listeners about what it's like, the situation? I'm sure if someone's tuning in, they're probably thinking about it as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we are going through a big crisis, economically speaking, but also politically, socially, even a healthcare crisis. So this is all in addition, of course, to the COVID that everyone else in all other countries in the world are going through. Basically, the currency has dropped tremendously in its value, which is making it very hard to be able to export everything that we need to export into the country. We don't locally produce much. So all healthcare, oil and gas, raw material, all of it comes from abroad. And because of the devaluation of the currency, we are unable to get much of those necessities into the country, including gas to fill up our cars, including electricity. So a lot of the time, there's no electricity at home. Even the generators are not always working. We have a shortage in medicine and healthcare supplies. Not everything is available. A lot of people are having to order them from abroad, from family or friends who are flying in. Everything is super also overpriced compared to the salaries that people are earning. We are currently functioning without government as well. We've been trying to form this government for a while now, and it's not happening due to a lot of political disagreements. And yeah, so I don't want to dwell too much on everything that's going on. We are still trying to stay strong and to do everything we can to stay in good spirit. And yoga has been helping a lot with this. So, of course, to me, my personal practice is sacred, and it's a place of consolation for me. Every time I step on my mat, I'm able to just tune into my breath and forget about everything going on around me, even if it's just for like 1 little hour during the day. But also teaching gives me that as well, because I see that with everything that's going on, other people as well are seeking solace in their yoga practice and seeking a little bit of peace of mind away from all the chaos happening outside. So when I'm teaching and I see that people, even for this short time, are able to just be happy, be with their breath, be with their body, and forget about everything, this gives me great fulfillment. And I'm so grateful more than ever for this beautiful practice.
Thank you, Tracy, for shining light on the situation in Lebanon and also for shining a light on how precious and sacred your practice is and what a gift it is for your community. So, what is exactly the yoga scene like in Lebanon or in Beirut? I know that Beirut's a big city, and it's also, I thought it's been described as like the Los Angeles of your region, and I thought that was so curious. I know you have a strong cinema and movie producing scene, and I just was curious how yoga is received by your community.
Yes, so our country has been described that way. And unfortunately, that was before the crisis that happened a couple of years ago, that started a couple of years ago, but has been basically forming for years and years now because of our corrupt government. Um, Basically, the yoga community is amazing here. And again, before the crisis, there were so many studios around every corner of the city. A lot of them had to close down because, as I've mentioned, businesses are really struggling to make ends meet and to cover their expenses while still generating income, paying their teachers, covering their electricity, and so on. So expenses are really huge, and income is really low at the moment. So unfortunately, a lot of the studios have closed down. A few of them are still open, and those that are open attract a lot of practitioners. The community has been growing over the last maybe 5 to 10 years. And we have a lot of advanced practitioners who are really committed, really dedicated. We also run at Sarvam a morning yoga challenge. So every morning at 7 to 8 a.m., we have a certain crowd that commits to coming in each and every morning and practicing. So that has also created a community of its own because the same people that come at the same time every morning. And also because we run retreats every now and there, we were able to also expand our community, especially now that traveling is really hard for Lebanese people. So they are really enjoying taking days off and doing locally organized yoga retreats. We have also run the 200-hour teacher trainings, and we've done so far two of them in Beirut, and that has also worked to expand the community. I love how we're growing with Sarvam Yoga because it's really organic. So we get basically a lot of students that are committed and dedicated. And then when we do our yoga teacher training, they are usually very interested. And once they complete that training, a lot of them are starting to teach at the studio. So expansion has been really organic, which is, I think, beautiful for the community here.
Oh, that is beautiful. The fact that you're training these students or that they have this history with you and then you're training them and then they're teaching with you. It's just a gorgeous continuum of student to teacher, but always, of course, a student for life. I'm curious though, Tracy, what advice would you give to your TTC students about how to get started teaching after they finish their TTC if they're not going to teach at the studio that they learned at? What do you think is some good advice since you jumped yourself right into teaching after completing your training? I'd love to hear what advice you'd give other students about how to get started as well.
Sure, I understand that it can be a big leap of faith to get started. It can also be a little bit intimidating to teach yoga to a class full of students. I sure was intimidated at the beginning, but I honestly truly believe that if someone is following their passion, and if that passion also works to serve others somehow, then things start to fall together and work. So my advice would be not to stress too much over it, to just dive in, start to teach from the heart classes here and there, even if they start teaching just for free. And slowly more paths will open up for them and more opportunities will come their way. And one of the things that I did at the beginning, my rule of thumb was to stay open and keep my energies receptive. So whatever opportunity would come my way, I would take it and I would just say yes to everything that came in until I had built up enough experience and so on to be able to really pick and choose whatever opportunities matched whatever I wanted to do at that point.
Yeah, I think that just getting started and just diving in and actually just doing it is some of the best advice out there, as well as yeah, offering things for free here and there, just getting your feet on the ground, getting a sense for it. I agree. It's very important to just try, just go, just do. I know there's a lot of hesitation and nerves and can be something scary to be leading a group of people through an asana practice, but I agree. Just get started.
Right, and just remembering why we're doing this in the first place. Like it's for me, it also helps a lot to think. Okay, so it's not about me. I'm doing this because I want to help my community. I want to serve. I want to share the yoga practice so that people can feel better about themselves. So when I remind myself of my intentions, I feel like things start to flow a lot easier, and things fall into alignment as well.
Yes. So, Tracy, I know that you teach hot yoga, vinyasa, power yoga lattes, and maybe other different styles of yoga as well. I wanted to ask you which style you enjoy teaching the most and why.
So I did my teacher training in hot yoga because at that point that was the only practice that I was doing. Since I discovered Bikram, I was dedicated to it. But after I did my training and I started to experience other styles of yoga, I really found myself in the vinyasa style. So, for example, Ashtanga is great to build foundation, to build strength, to build discipline, and so on. But for me, doing the same thing over and over and over again, just like Bikram as well, it's the same sequence that we repeat every time. But sometimes I feel that it creates a little bit of rigidity inside of me. So I like being and having the freedom to create my own sequences because I like also the playful aspect. I like the changing aspect. I like how flexible it can be. And I love that it can really ignite my creativity because I'm really very much into designing creative sequences. My favorite for teaching and for practicing as well is vinyasa style yoga.
Yeah, vinyasa is so creative. There's so much possibility and fluidity. I think it really inspires a lot in your practice to kind of have that flow that you can kind of get lost in. And as you're creating it yourself, you feel more connected to it as you're creating it.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think is the key for creative sequencing? I feel like that's a hot topic right now is how to create more creative sequencing. Do you have tips or any advice on that?
Yes, sure. So sometimes when we start to get too creative, I feel like the message of yoga can get a little bit lost. And also some of the safe frequency and foundational elements of sequencing can also get lost. So it's really important to stick to certain rules, keep the practice really safe and effective, especially on the long run, because a lot of the things that we do today might not have a negative effect on our bodies right now. But if we keep doing them over the years, then the body will start to suffer. So one of my ground rules is, of course, staying safe and sticking to certain rules and sequencing that will keep the practice effective without creating any damage. And then with those foundations in mind, I will try to play around in ways that will surprise people when we're practicing. And I think one of the keys to creating those sequences, so I am really good with visualizing. So a lot of times I will just close my eyes and visualize where can I go from posture to posture. But other people, they like to practice whatever sequences they're trying to design and test it out on themselves. So it really depends. It's a little bit of a personal thing. I also really like to watch different yoga videos, different teachers teaching, and without copying any of their sequences, just getting inspired in order to basically mix things up in my own sequences. Because a lot of times, if we are just committed to a self practice and we don't attend other teachers' classes, we tend to repeat the same thing over and over again. So it's really important, I think, as well to practice with other teachers, to practice maybe even online, just to refreshen up things a little bit in our mind and start to incorporate different things that maybe we had forgotten about or things that maybe we never thought of. Of course, not in a way where we're imitating or copying, but just in a way we're getting inspired and incorporating some elements that we were inspired from in our own teaching style that is really reflective of us. Very important to also stay authentic, although we are getting inspired from others. And we are here to like really inspire each other.
I like that you made that point, Tracy, of not sacrificing the foundations and the safety when creating these sequences, because sometimes I do think on perhaps social media, you see a 30-second, it's been sped up to look faster than it is, and you see all these back openers and two arm balances, and there can be this desire to really emulate very entertaining sequences. And I think our job as a yoga teacher isn't to entertain. It's not to just push those limits of creative sequencing to their absolute limits so that we can keep our students entertained. That's not our job. It's to make sure they're safe, balanced, and feeling the effect of yoga in the body in a positive way. And as you said, into the future as well. They're not creating bad habits or negative impact on the spine or on the joints. So I'm really glad you mentioned that.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. I don't think it is our job to entertain, but I also find it interesting because a lot of times what lures people into the practice at the beginning could be maybe the fun postures. And I for sure know that this is what lured me in. So a lot of people see those arm balances and they want to practice them and they want to get there. And at the beginning, that might be what really lures them in. But then later on, the deeper effects of the yoga practice will catch up with those practitioners. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to entertain. I don't have to call it entertain, but just to attract people with the more playful postures. And this eventually will translate into deeper, more meaningful benefits to them as well. So there's nothing wrong either with like giving a little playful practice, but of course without losing the purpose of it and the foundation for sure.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned playful asanas being attractive, just a little question. What is your favorite yoga asana right now?
That's a really, really tough question. I have so many favorites, but maybe Natarajasana or dancer's pose is one of my all-time favorites because it was in the Bikram sequence and it was one of my first favorite postures that I really love doing over and over and over again.
Yes, it's a beautiful expression of the body. Okay, so Tracy, I would love to ask too if our listeners are interested in your offerings or interested in tapping into the resources you have online, or if they're interested in coming maybe to Lebanon or following you wherever you will go. What's a good way for them to find you?
The best way to do so is through my Instagram channel. I try to keep it active as much as I can with some posts, especially if there's any like big events, I'll post them on my page for sure. And then my stories as well. I'll always advertise my daily classes, the timings, the locations, and all of that over there.
Sounds good. And are you teaching anything online?
So we taught online a lot during the lockdowns, during COVID. For the moment, I am teaching at the studio, but some of the classes that I teach are live streamed through Sarvam via Zoom.
Great. Got it. And the 200-hour teacher training programs, is that something available to students internationally? And if so, do you have a website for that they should check out?
Absolutely. So on the sarvamyoga.com website, there's all the details about our upcoming teacher training.
Perfect. And Tracy, I realized I didn't get to ask you about your interest in breath work and energy healing and all the trainings you've attended in pranic healing and rebirthing. Can we touch on that? I'm totally open to hear anything you have to share.
Yes, absolutely. So it was through yoga that I opened up to these practices. Um, I went to see an energy healer one time based on a friend's recommendation, and he just did a few things. I had no idea what they were, and I left feeling also kind of changed. And I was really intrigued, really interested. So he ended up becoming my teacher, and I did several workshops with him and several trainings, including pranic healing and rebirthing breathwork. So pranic healing is a lot about cleansing one's energy, cleansing the chakras, and basically we believe that a lot of the physical ailments that we can get, a lot of times they start energetically before manifesting physically and in the body. So when we're regularly cleansing energy, it really helps out with any potential physical sicknesses or so on. As for rebirthing, it's a type of breath work. It's a really conscious breathing. And when you do it for like 5 to 10 minutes, you enter a trance and your body starts breathing on its own. And you enter a state of consciousness that is beyond just the physical realm. And different people have very different experiences. So a lot of people experience numbing, a lot of people experience sweating, others experience becoming extremely cold. And of course, the virtual experiences differ for each and every person. The reason why it's called rebirthing is because it is believed that our birthing experience is the first trauma that we go through. So we are used to being in the mother's womb where everything's familiar, everything's safe, and all of a sudden the baby comes out. It's a whole new world. The umbilical cord is cut. The baby is breathing for the first time using its own lungs, and so on. So this is believed to be the first trauma. And through rebirthing breath work, the states that we enter are there in order to help us heal from our traumas. A lot of people actually during their sessions, they might experience their birth basically. And I kind of had that as well. And I've heard about many people that experience their birth. So experienced as in they might get memories of how it happened. They might feel like they're being pulled out of something. So again, it depends really. It's something super personal and every person will experience it differently. But I really recommend every person to give it a try because it's something that I've never felt before. And after the session, when we're done with the breathing, we go into this deep state of meditation. So a lot of time meditation can be really hard to access, but after this breathing, it becomes so effortless and the mind starts to really transcend all that is physical, the body and so on. And we start to feel deeply connected to the soul, very peaceful, feelings of bliss like nothing experienced before. And no matter how much I try to explain it and talk about it, the only way to really understand it is to just give it a try and experience it for oneself.
Wow, you've definitely talked me into wanting to try rebirthing. That's amazing. Is it something that you said everyone should try? So is it a rebirthing technique, something you could join, we'll say a class for, I'm not sure, in 60, 90 minutes, and then you can just try rebirthing? Or is it something you need to work up to?
Anyone who'd like to try it, they can find a rebirthing practitioner who can talk them through it. And it's better to have someone supervising you the first few times. Later on, it's completely fine to do it uh, by your own. But at the beginning, it's best to have someone who knows what they're doing, just supervising and holding the space and guiding the person through it. A lot of times, maybe some yoga studios will offer a group rebirthing session. So there will be a teacher leading the entire class through it, and can be really, really powerful because the collective energy brings out so much of each individual. You can just drop it and try it. No need for any prior experience, no need for training, nothing at all.
Perfect. And so I would love to tap into pranic healing just a little bit more, because I didn't realize it was so much about energy cleansing. How is this energetic cleansing happening in pranic healing?
So basically, if you are certified to be a pranic healer, you can either be doing it on yourself or on anyone else who needs it, whether they are physically in front of you or they're not there. And it's all about directing energy with the power of one's intention. The breathing is conscious and it's used to draw in energy. Basically, there is a certain method that we learn regarding how to use energies in order to cleanse the chakras or cleanse different body parts where we feel there's any blockages or so on. And it's just using really the power of the intention with the mind to direct energy to basically cleanse maybe energy that needs to be cleansed, and to maybe also refill energy where there's lack of it, maybe to remove surplus where there's extra energy sometimes that is not working to our advantage. So it's really just with the power of the intention. Visualizing can help a lot. And we normally use our hands to direct energy, although it can be done through our just consciousness. It can also be done through crystals. So the most advanced level of pranic healing is using crystals, and they really amplify the power of the energies that are coming in and out to cleanse a person, even an animal, oneself, or whatever needs to be cleansed.
It sounds so much like Reiki.
Yes, it is very, very similar.
Yeah. So how do you distinguish the difference between pranic healing and Reiki then?
I'm not very familiar with Reiki, so I would not know how to answer that very specifically. But I just believe that they're both energy healing practices, but just following maybe different methodologies. Maybe the founders are different, so each one has a certain name. But I really believe that the purpose of energy healing at the end of the day is one. And there's really so many different ways of doing it.
Yes, I agree. So thank you so much, Tracy, for answering all of my questions and for being such a wonderful guest here on the podcast. And I'd like to let my listeners know that I will link to Tracy's Instagram and to the yoga studio she's affiliated with, Sarvam Yoga. That will be linked in the podcast show notes as well as on my website, thewildyogatribe.com. So thank you so much, Tracy, for being with me today. It's been a joy to be with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, dear listener, for being with me and Tracy Estefane, a yoga teacher from Lebanon, today here on the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I hope you enjoyed learning more about her journey, getting started with hot yoga in London, and then diving into her profession as a yoga teacher right after doing her yoga teacher training in Thailand. I love stories when people immediately kind of seize that opportunity, take that leap of faith, and then dive right into this passion and calling of service to their communities. I feel so grateful that Tracy took this time to be with us. Given everything that's going on in her life, she still carved out time. Very grateful as well, dear listener, that you took time. I know your time is precious to be with us here today. Thank you and be well. Thank you for being on this journey with me. It has been a privilege to be with you. I know that your time is precious, and I am both humbled and honored that you chose to spend your time with me here on the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. As you are on your own inner journey, remember that you are not alone. There are so many of us on this path to awakening, this path of self-discovery and expansion, and we are right here alongside you. Remember to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you feel called, please share this episode with someone that you think could benefit from it. Leaving a review would also be so appreciated. If you're on social media, I am there too at the Wild Yoga Tribe. You can tap into all the amazing resources on my website, thewildyogatribe.com, and you can meditate with me on Insight Timer and get your flow on with me on my YouTube channel, where I've recorded free yoga classes. If you would like to schedule a private yoga or meditation class with me or a coaching session, you can find the link to do so to book in the show notes or on my website, again, thewildyogatribe.com. Thank you once again, dear listener, for being with me. May your day be light and bright. May you be peaceful and happy and led on the right path, free of suffering and free of sorrow. Be well, dear one. Be well.